You guys joining us for this video series. And what this is this is an A to Z bow video series. We're going to take you through the entire process of inspecting your bow, setting up your bow, choosing arrows, fletching arrows, and then we're going to give you some shooting tips and tactics, some routines that will really help sharpen your skills so that you're ready to go for those fall hunts. One of the first things that you're going to want to do, and this is a step that often gets overlooked, even if you've purchased a brand new bow for 2022 at an archery pro shop, and you didn't have the pro shop set it up, or you bought a used bow, or maybe you have a bow you've been using for years and you've decided, man, I got to get this thing out of the case, blow the dust off and get going. One of the first things you're going to want to do is a thorough bow inspection. And I mean from top cam to bottom cam and everything else in between. And that's where I start. Set up, get yourself in an area with some really good lighting. And then what you're going to want to do, what I like to do is I like to start with my top limbs, limb pocket, cams, that area of the bow, and I really give it a thorough inspection, starting with the limbs. Make sure that there is no separation in the limbs, no separation in the side of the limbs where things can start to come apart, things like that. And make sure that there is no fibers or anything like that sticking out or coming off of the limbs. That indicates a pretty serious problem, and that's something you're going to have to get looked at if you find that. If the limbs look good, if the pocket attachment looks good, everything looks secure where it hooks to the riser, go ahead and progress up and look at that top cam. Now, when you're looking at cams, what you're looking for is any ding, nick, scratch, anything like that, possibly even where the track of the cam has been bent in, or maybe it's got a deep notch with some abrasion that's going to cause problem and wear and tear on your string. You want to make sure that none of that is present, that the cam's look in good working shape, and that your strings and cables are resting comfortably inside of those valleys in the cam, and that it all looks good in those cam tracks and everything is set up and functioning the way it should. Also, while you're looking at that top cam, go ahead and take a look at where your strings and cables attach to that cam, because there'll be areas a lot of times where those strings and cables are served, and that serving may really start to separate. You may even see that you have some free serving hanging off and things like that. And again, those are things that need to be remedied, and now's the time to get that taken care of. Once you get through that part of the inspection, go ahead and move down to the riser of the bow. Now, with today's bow models, it's very rare for damage to occur in the riser, but still, you want to look for any cracks in the riser. One of the things I like to do is I just like to grab my riser and tap on it lightly, bang on it a little bit, and listen for any residual sound, any oscillation, things like that that could indicate that there is some sort of an issue going on. Then go ahead and repeat the process that you did on the top limb pockets, the top limbs, and the top cam with the bottom portion of the bow, with that cam, those limbs, and that bottom pocket. Once you've given that a thorough once-over, move on to your strings and cables, and don't ignore this. If you have fray, okay, and fray is common with a used bow that you may have just bought, or one you've been shooting for years and got it out of the case like we said, a brand new bow with strings and cables should not have any fray or damage. But if you do see a little bit of fray, that's normal, and that can be cleaned up with some bowstring wax, and then you can take a piece of dental floss, run it along the string, and get all that gunk and stuff cleaned up, bring those frays back into the string, and everything will be fine. However, if you do come across some broken strands, or if you find fray that looks like a puffball, you've got an issue. You're going to want to get to your pro shop, and you're going to want to get some new strings and cables ordered for your compound bow. Once you do that, go ahead and take a second, especially if it's been a while since you've shot, or again, you bought a used bow, you weren't sure what the draw length is set at, and take the time to really measure your draw length, because having appropriate draw length is absolutely essential to accuracy and enjoyment of shooting. You don't want to shoot a bow that's too long, and you don't want to shoot a bow that's too short, and measuring your draw length is too easy to skip. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to put yourself against a flat walled surface, kind of like the one behind me here. And what you need to do is you need to have a partner for this. You're going to stand flat against that wall and extend your arms out, much like the wings of an eagle. And once you have your arms completely flat against the wall, have a buddy take a pencil and lightly highlight the tips of each middle finger. Then step away from the wall, run a tape measure between those two marks, and you're going to get a number. Take that number and divide by 2.5. Now, that is going to be your exact and appropriate draw length. However, let me give you an example here. My draw length is 29 inches. When I punch in all my data after doing the measurements and things we just talked about, I get like 29.3 something on the calculator. So I've always found it best to go down. So I shoot a 29-inch draw. It's always better to be a little short than a little bit long. But that will give you your exact draw length. Now go back to the bow. And we're specifically going to go to the cams now, because your cam is going to either have a set module or it's going to have an adjustable module. If you have a set module and your draw length is 29 inches and that set module is for 28 inches, there is no adjustment to that module. You're going to have to visit your pro shop, get one of those ordered at your specific draw length, and it's really easy to swap them out. The pro shop can do it, but a lot of times it's just a couple of little screws and you can get your module changed yourself. Now, a lot of modern day bows, even flagship bows now, have gone to an adjustable module system within the cam. And all you're going to need to do is take a look at what your draw length is and then read the manufacturer's instructions. Some bows even have it printed on the inside of the limbs and things like that. And you're going to loosen some module screws and you're going to slide each cam module, top and bottom, to your appropriate draw length. So if your draw length's 29.5, you want to set it at 29.5. Then go ahead, get those module screws locked back down, make sure everything's nice and tight. And now you're ready to move on to the next portion of what you're going to need to do. And this is a big one, and this has to do with draw weight. One of the biggest mistakes I see bow hunters do every year is they're trying to pull too much poundage, and too much poundage is going to lead to some serious problems. It's going to lead to problems with accuracy, it's going to lead to problems with shooting enjoyment, and you can cause some severe injury to your back and shoulders. Don't pull more weight than you need to pull. I've blown through bull elk at 40 plus yards shooting a 60-pound bow. My wife shoots 47 pounds and she blew through a white-tailed deer last year at 44 yards. So you want to shoot a poundage that is comfortable for you. Today's bows are incredible and they're capable of producing an insane amount of energy even at low poundages. So when you're looking at poundage, make sure, again, you refer back to the manufacturer's instructions. Some bows will have it labeled on them. But, for instance, if you are shooting a bow rated as a 70-pound bow and is adjustable between 60 and 70, you do not want to go below that 60-pound mark. Backing those limb screws out too far can cause catastrophic damage to the bow very quickly. It has that rating for a reason, and you want to make sure that you stick to that rating. Adjusting limb screws, limb bolt screws is very easy. Most bows, a counterclockwise turns will take the limb screws out and lower your poundage, where a clockwise turn will drive those limbs back down into the riser and increase your poundage on that particular bow. Now, when you're making adjustments, it's very important that what you do to the bottom limb screw or the top limb screw you do to the bottom limb screw, or vice versa. You got to do the same to each. If you back one out half a turn, back the other one out half a turn. If you back one out 2 full revolutions, make sure you back the other one out 2 full revolutions. Then you can get your draw weight set correctly. Now, manufacturers will have a recommendation on 2 turns will give you this much poundage. What I like to do is I like to invest in just a low price digital bow scale, set your release in such a manner that it won't go off if you're measuring with a bow scale that doesn't hook directly to the bow. There aren't many of those, but what I like to do is just get the bow scale that hooks up directly to the bow. You don't have to worry about a misfire or anything like that. Pull the bow back, let it down, and it's going to give you the exact poundage that you're pulling so that you know. Write that poundage down, because you may find that it's too much, and you may find over time you want to go up in poundage as you shoot and start to get stronger. Now, with draw weight, you want to make sure that you check that. Don't just go, oh, I'm at 62 pounds and that's good and that's probably where I need to be. You need to confirm that. And the best way to confirm that is to set down flat on your rear end on the ground, hold the bow straight out in front of you, and then pull the string straight back in one fluid motion. If you can't do that, chances are good you're pulling too much weight. Also, if you sit down flat on your rear and go to pull that string back and you find you have to point that bow up towards the sky and knit and grit and your teeth to get it back, you are pulling too much draw weight. Two of the most important things to getting things started off on the right foot is making sure that your draw length is set appropriately and your draw weight is set appropriately. and that you've done a thorough bow inspection, and then we're ready to move on to part number 2.